The questions already.
Well, I probably answered all of our questions already. I guess what short term, what's most key in terms of the settlement and all the things you have to look for, and the revenue sharing stuff and roster limits, still being fairly unsettled, to put it mildly.
I think short term we're there. We're set up and ready to go because we're operating like it's going to happen. So, at this juncture, I'm not too caught up in the final details because I think the final details are pretty well worked out. So we're ready to go.
From a more long-term perspective, more things are set in place, the absolute number that's going to need to be raised annually. How are you in that regard?
Well, I wish I knew what that long-term part is. So you asked the short-term, which I said we're ready to go. Long-term is a whole other kettle of fish, and that's not going to get solved overnight. Part of it is it's going to be an ongoing process. Are the caps going to be caps? What are going to be the circumventions of the cap? How are we funding what we're going to do in the short term? How are we going to fund what we're doing in the short term, long term? We have ways to fund it in the short term. But those are all solutions that are going to have to be worked through. If they were easy solutions, we'd already be doing them.
With the you've got that figured out. How about the president now? You've got some transition coming up there, and
be my fourth.
Yeah, fourth. Wow, long time. But
I'm sure one of the coaches already used this line: "Is we have to train somebody again." But that's always. I'm excited for Dr. Winterstein. She served Iowa State for a long time. Obviously, the last 8 years as president. She's been great for athletics. I told her, although I'm sad to see her go, we'll do our best to send her off with a winner this fall, and we'll have a really fun time in Ireland and celebrate her time. So, and what happens next? They're not gonna. Jamie Pollard's not gonna have a say in that, nor will really the athletics department. That'll be a board of regents, and we'll help be part of that.
Do you get a feel though that it's kind of past the point it was maybe in the 70s and 80s, and now you're going to get a president that is friendly to athletics and knows how important that it is to a university?
Well, athletics is a big part of the university, and the world we're working in today makes that even more of an issue. So whoever gets hired is going to have to be versed or understand or quickly get brought up to speed on the landscape going forward, because it's an Iowa State challenge for Iowa State athletics to stay at this level. It isn't just an athletics department challenge.
Where does the regents come in?
Well, they run the circuit, so it'll be it'll be a huge undertaking for them, as anytime you're going to have to hire a new president of a university. But the athletic piece clearly is got a lot of uncertainty that will, I'm sure, be a big part of the questions that get asked of the potential candidates.
Why was it important to you to bring the high school basketball championships to Houghton Coliseum?
Well, first of all, a big shout out to Tom, and the high school association, because they reached out to us, and for us, it was very prideful that we would love to have them in Ames, but more importantly, it's huge for Sait Town and the university. I think it demonstrated the power and reach of Sait Town, but then secondly, as an institution, having not the players, but not the participants, but all the fans that come. I think of the school buses that come down because they close school and come down and watch their team play in the high school tournament. And that'll be in Ames, Iowa, on Iowa State University's campus with Sait Town right there. It's an infomercial for enrolling at Iowa State as a high schooler. So that was really big. But for the folks over at Boone that run the High School Athletic Association, I give them a ton of kudos, because that was a big move. And what we told them right off the bat was, we're interested if you have a vision for what this could be. We're not in it to compete against Des Moines. We have too much of a great relationship with Greg Edwards and Chris Conley, just to try to outbid it. It was, if you envision the tournament here, then let's talk, because we can do some really neat stuff. And so from that standpoint, we're excited because I think it's something that we can pour into and help them grow the tournament in ways differently because it's on a college campus.
Was it a surprise when they reached out to you? I mean, is that something that...
Pleasant surprise,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, because I thought, quite honestly, that it was probably they were trying to sharpen Des Moines' pencils. You know, like, let's get the bid, give them competition, right? And when we first spoke, that's the first thing I said, is we're not interested in bidding against Des Moines. If that's what you're doing, then we're not part of it. Because, again, we think too highly of the folks in Des Moines. But they were looking for, they were looking for something different. And so then that really got us excited. And they were very excited about Sait Town. So it was like, wow, this is a perfect time.
How much progress has been made on Sait Town so far?
A lot. It's like a duck swimming in water. You can't see the little legs working under the water. We're actually getting to see a little bit of it right now with McFarland coming out of the ground. So that part's neat, but it'll be a good year before any other development comes out of the ground. But that doesn't mean that
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
the duck isn't swimming really hard
Right.
under the water because there's still a lot of stuff that has to happen.
Any updates on tenants that are going to be going in, or like restaurants, or
Because it's part of the process of, they've still got to select contractors, then they've got to cost out the buildings. When you cost out the buildings, then you know what tenant rents will be. We have a long list of entities that want to be in there, but we haven't been able to tell them, we've been able to give approximations, but you haven't been able to give, well, here's what the actual terms will be, because things aren't costed out yet. So it's just a process. The developer's probably about a year behind the timing of McFarland, and McFarland was just ahead because we needed somebody to be first, and we did that one ourselves. So McFarland had a good year head start on the developer.
During a time where your athletic department expenditures are about to increase beyond imaginable levels, why is Sait Town something that you're so passionate about investing in, not only for the athletic department, but also the fan base as well?
Well, I want to make sure we explain this. So Sait Town is not the athletics department.
Yeah.
And so, the revenues from Sait Town don't come to the athletics department. They don't go to the university, they don't go to the city. They stay in Sait Town to replenish the Iowa State Center and the arts buildings and not leave the university 50 years from now with what we have today, which was the Iowa State Center was amazing, but no one thought about 50 years later. And so we're setting it up in a way that Sait Town 50 years from now will have revenues to maintain itself. So I think that's a really important distinction. Now, will athletics benefit from Sait Town being there and being robust? And yes, because it's amenities that will make it more attractive to come to our events and creates an environment for our coaches. Like Coach Campbell told me the first time I ever talked to him about Sait Town is that'll be awesome for recruiting. So, but I just want to make that distinction because we're not investing there, so we're not investing in athletics. Athletics hasn't put really any money at risk in a Sait Town.
Back to the long-term question. What's going to happen from a funding perspective once revenue sharing is set in stone? Obviously, the change in the ball will probably go up, and all those things are in place. We've talked a lot about shortfalls. What's going to have to kick in, I guess. Do you think?
Well, I think you have to. First of all, there's no on a macro level. All you have to do is look around the country.
Sure.
And every institution now is in a situation where they're pouring money into athletics. And so, really what needs to first happen in this state is the Board of Regents has to acknowledge that the 2011 policy can't exist any longer unless they want us not to be at this level.
Sure.
Because if you can't put any institutional funding into athletics, then what are you really saying? So that to me but that's an education process that has to happen. And then, there's not one silver bullet that's going to solve the 20 million plus problem, right? You're going to have to come up with a lot of different solutions. But you can't start those solutions if you aren't allowed to even have those discussions. So we're in that space right now. The good news is, we've got a little bit of time on our side because we've done a really good job of having financial discipline over the last umpteen years. So we've got time to make good decisions and not have to make immediate decisions which may be bad.
To that end, how much does a cost-benefit analysis, when you look at what athletics brings in, do
Well-
in terms of negotiating? Like, hey, if you give us this much, think of
Well,
how much comes back.
Well, you have to start with acknowledging how much of an economic engine college athletics is to Central Iowa. Because if you take that away, there will be more than the university that will be hurt. And so you have to think about that when you start making some decisions that maybe you wouldn't have made if you didn't have this new challenge in front of you, right? Because for the last 20 years, we haven't had to worry about having institutional support.
Exactly.
We just haven't. Okay, we've been able to work around that, but those days are being left behind. And so it's a new frontier, and we're going to have to make some choices that, again, if they were easy choices, they would already been made.
Sure.
But they're not bad choices. They're just choices of acknowledging the value of athletics and the cost if you don't have it.
And
What do you think of the new video board, and why was that a priority?
Well, I saw it, the one on the south, playing today from my office, and it's as clear as my television at home, which was pretty cool. It's just, it's like anything, technology changes, and so it was time to update the boards, and we'll all benefit from the technology because the pixels will be that much tighter, and it'll be a better picture on both ends of the stadium for fan experience.
Can you explain what your confidence level is in the Deloitte organization being able to regulate NIL income relative to what is written in the House settlement?
Well, it would be sheer speculation because we haven't started seeing it in place. I would just say if they're not restrictions, or if they're not firewalls or bumpers on the bowling alleys, then we've got bigger issues in this industry than any of us think we do. And so there needs to be some guardrails, because if there's not, we're really running college athletics off the tracks.
To follow up then, does it concern you that there seems to be some schools that are already going way past what they're investing into their rosters, or do you think that's a circumstance of the two timelines kind of merging of NIL and the House?
Well, clearly the
together?
timing of all this allowed schools that had the willingness and were able to dump a whole bunch of money prior to July 1st. Okay? And so I don't like that they did that, but if people chose to do that, so that's the world you're in. The question's going to be what happens next year. Because on the surface, you'd say there have to be a lot of student athletes getting less money than they got this year. And so we'll find out. So the answer to your question will be, what does that look? What are we asking on this tour next year at this time?
Ireland update, like tickets sold or
Yeah,
anything?
awesome. So we're 10,000 plus. K-State's in that same neighborhood. So the developer, switch gears. The promoter is extremely pleased with where we're at. We just had our ops team come back from over there, and they had the same experience that Coach Campbell and I had, which is our fans are going to love this. And the promoter is very excited about, 100 and maybe 8 days or 9 days, lost track of that, to that opportunity. So yeah, it should be a really neat experience.